In 1970, the Ford Pinto was released for consumers to buy. As early as 1972, reports of explosions and low-speed collisions with Pintos coming from the rear was brought into the attention of the National Highway Safety and Transportation Administration. Several lawsuits were filed against Ford Motor Company. Reports range from 27 to 180 deaths as a result of rear impact-related fuel tanks in the Pinto. The Pinto engine was a generic nickname for a four-cylinder internal combustion engine built by Ford. It is a modified version of the engine used in Cortinas for several years. The Pinto earned its notoriety from the mixture of a rear-mounted fuel tank and a solid rear axle. While in a crash, the rear axle housing could make contact with the fuel tank. Combined with the fuel filler neck design, it would lead to spilling of fuel and therefore fire. The Pinto was also supposed to be economical, efficient, with an average 25 miles per gallon simulated for city and suburban driving, wider stance than any so you won't be pushed around by the wind, and better comfort with high bucket seats and spacious room all around. It was economical because this car was supposed to run with little servicing, little noise, and expense. It was to weigh no more than 2,000 pounds and cost no more than $2,000. 2,100 vehicles were reported to have burned. Records show that Ford first conducted rear-end collisions in 1970, months after it was already in production. Out of 11 tests, 9 gas tanks burst into flames. Only 3 tests didn't result in fires. Ford decided to cram 3.5 years' worth of drafting board to showroom time down to 2 years. This meant that design changes and modifications made during this time were cut out or made during it, just so that they could have the subcompact ready for the 1971 model year. One of the most significant legal cases was Grimshaw v. Ford Motor Company. A Pinto being driven by Lily Gray stalled in the center lane of a California freeway. A car hit Gray's Pinto from behind, traveling from 30 to 50 miles per hour. Gray died at the impact, and 13-year-old passenger Richard Grimshaw suffered serious and permanently disfiguring burns. Grimshaw was awarded $2,516,000 worth of compensatory damages and $125 million punitive damages, and the Grays were awarded $559,680 in compensatory damages. The loss of life doesn't end there. On August 10, 1978, 18-year-old Judy Ulrich, her 16-year-old sister Lynn, and their 18-year-old cousin Donna were hit in a crash and their gas tank exploded on impact, causing all 3 teenagers to be burned to death. Ford was charged with criminal homicide, but the trial went on and the jury found Ford not guilty. This disaster cost Ford many lawsuits, reputation damage, and money. Ford estimated the cost of fuel tank modifications that would reduce fire risks in rollover events to be $11 per car across 12.5 million cars, coming to a total of $137 million. Ford knew that the Pinto showed a serious fire hazard when a crash occurred, even in very low-speed collisions. After the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration adopted a 30-mile-per-hour collision standard in 1976, the Pinto then acquired a rupture-proof fuel tank. In 1978, Ford recalled all 1971 to 1976 Pintos for modifications. During production, as previously stated, Ford could have conducted more tests and made more modifications to make this car more safe and secure for drivers. By conducting tests and changing the design of the fuel tank, they could have saved many lives and saved Ford a lot of trouble and lawsuits. After concluding the tests performed for the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Ford recalled the cars and made several modifications such as a longer fuel filler neck with a better clamp to keep it secure, better gas cap in some, and placement of a plastic shield between the front of the fuel tank and the differential to protect the tank when pieces moving inside the car and to protect it from the rear shock absorber. This vehicle was bad news from the start since it had not been tested or modified enough before being sold. This car had too sensitive of a fuel tank along with a high chance of rollover accidents due to instability of the vehicle as a whole. This disaster sprung up the conclusion that testing vehicles and modifying them until they're 100% safe is the smartest way to go. Also, securing the fuel tank, which holds extremely flammable liquid inside, is essential. This disaster, in my opinion, could have been stopped way before they were able to be sold and bought. Many lives could have been saved, but one careless mistake caused people severe injuries and death. In the future, cars should be tested many times to ensure the safety of its passengers. Investigators should have found more faults because no one should have died or been injured for mistakes like these.